Hi, I'm Ellie Lewis, and I work with CLAS at CU Denver. And I'm here to talk today with
Hi, I'm Martha Young. Thank you so much for inviting me.
what drew you to integrative biology and ultimately brought you here to CU Denver.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I've known from a very long time that I've wanted to just work with animals for my whole life. It's just always something I've been super interested in. So that's like one reason why I really love biology. And it's also just because like I really like understanding how the world works and like the processes and everything like that. And so when I got to William Mary, I just kind of like I did research while I was there, studying freshwater jellyfish, which was just so fun. And I was like, you know what? I actually really, really enjoy research. This is something that I want to continue, and I want to just like keep learning about kind of like wacky little creatures that people don't think about very often. And so that all led me here to study dragonflies. I've always just been so interested in animals and like the diversity of life and just having the dream of having a job where I just go around and like look at weird animals and like pick up weird animals and just like think about weird animals just has always sounded like the dream. So I've known I've wanted to kind of work with animals from a very young age, and then just doing like research in undergrad at William and Mary on freshwater jellyfish just kind of solidified that I really enjoy doing research and just kind of like understanding, like finding out new things about these organisms. So, yeah, that's kind of all led me to want to pursue my master's in biology.
So, what was it about CU Denver and this program in particular that felt like it would be the right place for you to grow?
So when I was looking for grad programs, I was kind of looking at a lot of different places, but what really stood out to me specifically about the department, as well as like my advisor, was just kind of like how supportive the community is. My advisor, Mike Moore, is just like I pretty much came here because of both his research and him. We just got along really well, and he just seemed like such a good mentor, and he's turned out to be a fantastic mentor. And obviously his research was really cool, but just like seeing this department, it's pretty small and close and like pretty tight. I was just looking for somewhere that I could learn more and hopefully about myself and about biology.
Explain what it is that you're studying and how it applies to the real world, like I am 5 years old.
I can try my best. So basically, what I'm studying is how development is impacted by differences in elevation in odonates, and that's dragonflies and damselflies. So overall, with climate change, it's kind of expected that a lot of organisms are going to want to move upslope because it's warming and it's colder upslope. And so, but it seems like that's happening a lot slower than expected. And one possible reason for that is because, like, if you've ever been at a hike, like really high up in the mountains, it's windy, you're breathing really hard, there's no oxygen, you're sunburnt all the time. And these are like environmental conditions that animals have to face too. So maybe like our hypothesis kind of is just that these organisms just have a really hard time developing in these harsh conditions. And so I wanted to see if that's actually the case. So I did what's called like a reciprocal transplant experiment. So I took some individuals from a low elevation and then I brought them up to a high elevation and just basically saw what happened.
And what happened?
That's a great question. It honestly seems like, so specifically I was looking at something called developmental plasticity. So pretty much if they grow up in a new environment, do their traits change in any way than if they grew up in their old environment? And the short answer is it seems like yes. And it's interesting because I looked at both dragonflies and damselflies. So those are two kind of like they're grouped together.
Yeah.
And each of them kind of like they need they're just different organisms, so they kind of are impacted by different factors. Dragonflies have plasticity for the traits that are the most important to them, and damselflies have plasticity in the traits that are most important for them. So it fits strangely, and so it kind of seems like that isn't the barrier that we thought it might be to these organisms moving upslope. The main thing that I have found is that it seems like damselflies, they are a lot less tolerant to cold temperatures. So they're really, they're called like thermoconformers. So they're not very good at taking the outside temperature and kind of like adjusting to it. Or like adjusting so that they're basically staying comfortable. And so they ended up having plasticity that would help them to warm up more easily in the cold environment. And then dragonflies, they are really intense flyers. So when they fly around, they use up a ton of energy. They're just like intense predators, territorial. They're kind of crazy guys.
They look like tanks.
Yeah, they're huge
fly.
and kind of scary.
Yeah.
They're wild.
Imagine if they were like 100 million, not 100 million, I don't know, 1,000 times bigger. Very scary looking.
Yeah, they used to be quite a bit bigger. Yeah, a while ago.
You learned it here.
Yeah, they used to be like, a couple, like a foot or two across.
Like last week?
Not like a very long time ago, like dinosaur era. They're a very old group. But then with birds coming, they had to be a bit more evasive. They were kind of lumbered around when they were so big. But yeah, so they have this like really high oxygen demand while they're flying. And so it seems then that if they grow up at a high elevation, they're actually better at flying for longer in low oxygen conditions.
Your project involved a really demanding field experiment.
As it did. It did.
What did that experience actually look like day to day?
Yeah, great question. So in my experiment, I basically had two different sites that I kind of grew my dragonflies and damselflies up in. And so I collected these guys when they were little babies. And so I went into a pond in waders and with a net because their larval stage is aquatic. And I just kind of grabbed them up from the water. And then I moved them either to a low elevation or high elevation site. And then I set up these they were actually like little kiddie pools that I filled with water, and I put a little grow tent, like using a garden over them. And then I had to go check them every other day to see like when they had developed into adults. And so once I had my whole experiment set up, because this is an interesting thing about field work, like it is sweaty and gross and like, very fun, but there's also so much driving. And so like every other day for the whole summer, I was going to check on my field sites, and my loop around like from CU Denver over to my different sites was like about 3.5 hours. So I did that every other day. And I would collect my little guys and I recently checked, I listened to 9 audiobooks. And then I would bring them back to the lab at CU Denver. And then the next day I would come in and I would do different measurements. So this is when I would measure to see what their cold tolerance is, what their tolerance is to those low oxygen conditions. And then I would go and check on and do the 3-hour drive the next day. Really nice because CU Denver has some like pretty fun partnerships where I was able to set up my experiments. So one of my sites, my low elevation site, was at Chatfield Farms, which is with the Denver Botanic Gardens. So that was super fun. I was just like tucked away in a little corner. In the back, there were a bunch of research plots, so I got to use one of those, which was lovely. And then my other research site was up in near Nederland at the CU Mountain Research Station. One of the reasons that I really liked the lab here at CU Denver that I joined was the focus on climate change, because obviously the world is changing pretty quickly, and it's really hard to keep up with kind of how organisms and animals are kind of dealing with that really rapid change, because we've found it difficult. We haven't been able to ski, but maybe I know, it's sad, but maybe other organisms have an even harder time. And so, yeah, that has like just kind of issues with climate change has really, I was kind of brought up on thinking about that just through my family. And so I think like that was always something that I was really passionate about. And it was always something that I felt like I would like to make even a very small, hopefully good change. And I feel like then as I started realizing that I really wanted to work with animals and that I loved research, it just made a lot of sense to me to want to kind of study how species and just other organisms are dealing with climate change. And maybe if we know that, we can just kind of like other people that aren't me in the government can actually make those changes, hopefully.
So momentum can come from recognizing the importance of a moment. When did you feel yourself really step into yours here at CU Denver?
At CU Denver. Yeah, no, that's an interesting question. I feel like a lot of times what happens with kind of anyone going into a grad program is that like at first you feel like you have no idea what's going on. You're like, I actually don't know anything. And you just kind of come in and you just like, sometimes it can feel a little weird to be like, when can I actually start contributing? Like, when do I know enough to actually start contributing to like in my classes, in my lab meetings, what have you? And I feel like what really ended up helping me is talking to other graduate students and having them just be like, yeah, we know what we're doing, but you know, there's still so much that we don't know, and you kind of just have to go along with it, and not knowing is also so okay. And I feel like once I learned that, it just made me feel so much more comfortable, and I found myself like really kind of getting a lot more integrated into the department, just because I felt like, you know, when I was asking questions, I was getting more of a rapport with other professors and other graduate students and just like learning so much from them. And I feel like once that starts happening and you just feel comfortable in the space that you're in, just like everything else follows a lot more easily when you don't have that imposter syndrome.
So you've also spent a lot of time teaching and mentoring.
Mm-hmm.
So what was that experience mean to you?
Oh yeah, I feel like, so I've TA'd for the introductory biology labs for the whole time I've been here, and it's been one of the most like rewarding things that I've done at CU Denver. It's been a really interesting experience. I just hadn't really had any experience like talking in front of a group of people before. Yeah. I was coming right out of undergrad. These students were like, you know, a bit younger than me, but maybe not younger than me. And just like kind of getting the confidence to be able to stand up in front of a room of people. And even when you know that you're not the expert in what you're talking about, having to like teach them and be like, hey, I do have faults, but I kind of know some stuff, and here it is. And so I feel like it's been such a lovely experience. So I feel like, yeah, at the very beginning, I would constantly have these moments where I was talking in the front or explaining something and just being like, they're all looking at me and they're all like taking in what I'm saying and like listening to the things I'm saying. And I would get so nervous, and that's gotten so much better. And I think that's like helped my public speaking, but also just my confidence in being able to explain things like relatively clearly, I hope, to people. And honestly, also just so many of the students at CU Denver are so incredibly lovely, and they're so fun to work with, and they are just like, they're so smart and so capable, and I have really loved working with them.
As you look ahead, what kind of impact do you hope to make after CU Denver?
That's a good question. I think that, hard to say. What my next step will be is actually I'm going to keep teaching. So that's going to be my immediate impact. So I'm going to start teaching I'm going to be teaching physiology at the University of Minnesota, Rochester, which will be super fun.
I'm so excited for you.
Thank you.
If you could go back and give advice to yourself at the start of this journey, what would you tell yourself?
I would say that when you're starting out in a program like this, where everyone around you seems so incredibly smart and just so incredibly amazing, and you just get into this space and like everyone that's around you talking, you don't understand anything that they're saying. And I would say, like, as we talked about, that can really bring up some feelings of imposter syndrome and just feeling like, this isn't the place for me. This is not, like, how did I get myself here? Like, why did they even let me in? Did they switch up the applications? All of these things. I know, but that's honestly how so many different people feel. And I feel like I really would have liked to tell my younger self, like, any single person that you ask has felt the exact same way at some point. Whatever new scary thing you're starting, everyone else has also started that new scary thing at some point. Yeah. They've also been scared. And I feel like just being okay with asking questions. It's totally fine if you don't know something. If you don't know something about, like, what classes you should be taking, like how to get started on your research. All of these things just seem so overwhelming. But people around you are going to have the answers. They're just not necessarily going to, like, know what you're stressed about, know what you need answers to. And so just ask questions and know that whatever feeling you're having at the time, you're for sure not alone in that.
We're done, so nice. Yeah, want a high five? I do.
Yay! We did it.
Glad. Thanks, everybody. Oh, thanks, everybody. I don't know.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
For real.